Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. Got the morning coffee going here. It's Grumpy Day, where he says, I hate mornings. And damn right. It is Thursday, though, so we're almost at the weekend. So hang in there. A couple of things to get to. Flying solo today. Alex is not feeling well. He joins us normally on Thursdays, as well as actually Trevor, who is feeling fine except about Serbia's performance. So I think he's just avoiding us so he doesn't have to talk about Serbia. But there's a lot of headlines to get to, and obviously we have you guys to keep company. So we'll start with the Liverpool stuff as always, right? And Alan is here as always. Good morning, Alan. Good to see Alan back. I know he was missing in action a few days too, but hopefully all news is good on that front. So obviously the biggest talk with us is going to Alan says ready for my daily fix. Hold on, I'm gonna give you your daily fix of Ronaldo news in a little bit over here because it is not a day if there is not a Ronaldo headline, apparently. So um okay, so obviously the biggest news for us at all times at the moment is they're getting ready to play games, but Bellingham is the constant conversation. So here's the thing. I mean, you read more and more and more, and man, I just don't want to get my hopes up on this thing because I think he's everything we need and then some. So I don't want to get my hopes up. It looks more and more possible with every headline. But I mean, there was one that said pretty much a done deal. They just have to agree on the money, which is kind of like saying dinner is ready, just gotta cook it. Kind of an ordeal where that's what it's all about at the end is money. I guess we go back to, will Liverpool fork out the money that Dortmund is looking for, which is going to be, I think that tweet was, they're kind of evaluating him at 150. We're saying 100. I mean, obviously it's a negotiation, right? So they're gonna start high, we're gonna start low. But I think we're in a situation where normally, somebody starts at 150, the one starts at 100. You meet somewhere in the middle, 120, 130, or something like that. I'm thinking in this case, the seller does not really have to go down a lot because there will be a lot of takers. There'll be a lot of teams involved, if nothing else, to bring the price up or keep the price up, show interest, kind of a deal, let's say. Sounds more and more like Bellingham would prefer Liverpool. Everybody around him would prefer Liverpool. Uh, like mom, dad, uncle, the pets, everybody prefers Liverpool over like a Madrid switch. I guess it really depends on what he would want, and I think that's the difference between like wanting or being okay with almost like working away from home and not dealing with the English media and stuff like that on a daily basis, compared to just being a guy on like a Madrid team or something like that, where you're not going to get as much attention. Whereas, because they keep spending this kind of money on new guys and young guys, so it won't be anything new for them. Whereas, when we're investing this kind of money, we're kind of pretty much saying you are the future, and kind of like going off of that. So I'm hoping when Liverpool, FSG, the new partial owner, the new whole owner, whatever it ends up being, kind of looks at this and says, I mean, we were talking about this on the Discord channel yesterday as well. I mean, it's 150 million, let's say, but this is a guy that's going to be the key piece of your midfield for about a decade, obviously, barring injuries, right? He's only 19, in more than a freaking decade, like a decade he's going to be in his prime. Just imagine that, by the way. That's just like ridiculous. But, and I think that's why it is a good investment, regardless of how high the money is. So let's just freaking do this, get it done and over with. We were doing all kinds of like negotiations on the Discord channel yesterday. We were throwing Keita in the deal to sweeten it up and stuff like that in January. Of course, that would only be good in January, but hey, I'll take it. Actually, they can take Keita now. He's going to be hurt anyway, so they can take Keita and 110, 120, whatever it is, and sign the deal, get it done, so we know he's coming in the summer, and then we kind of like move on. Either way, we will need reinforcements. Rabat was like one name that was from Morocco thrown around. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but first when I saw the name, I was like, no, not that one. No, this is the other one. This is the midfielder one, not the winger. So we will need reinforcements either way, and I'm totally okay with kind of like sealing this deal in January, knowing that he's going to come in summer, and then we just like kind of move on. I mean, it's like I say, I just don't want to get my hopes up because man, he is just like everything that we need, I think, right now. You look at this World Cup and you look at, like some of the possibilities, all these players and stuff like that. And obviously he has been England's best. Take a Keita and Jones, Sparky says. I mean, hey, I mean, throw everybody in there. I mean, maybe not an Ox, but yeah, I mean, you name it, we can throw them in there. I think out of those names, Keita is probably the most attractive name to a German team right now in terms of being able to plug and play. This is basically, I mean, the Bundesliga Player of the Year coming back to the league where he was really, really good. I mean, you could argue maybe he did not fit the system after all as much as we thought he would in terms of maybe physically he was not able to keep up with the demands of the system because it's something to be like a good counter presser and being able to do that, but not every team does that nonstop like we do. There are teams where kind of like they kind of like switch back on and off, and I think we went off the fact that he can do that, and he can, and when he does it well, but maybe his body just can't handle doing it on like a regular basis for 90 minutes, and then he eventually breaks down. I mean, you could say he was just unlucky with injuries. I really feel like it's similar to Taki, where you can do well in a league and be able to cope with the physicality there, but not translate it into another league, kind of like the Premier League, which is right now really the toughest. And I don't want to say like most physical in the sense that, like harder tackles or anything like that. But I think the pace of the game in terms of physicality, the pace of the game, how fast the game is played, how fast the players are. I think in that sense, when we say physicality, it's a bigger factor and it's more difficult than, let's say, a Bundesliga or something like that. So Keita is definitely like a good option to throw in there. But I don't even know if, Dortmund would be interested in that because Dortmund is not all about, and not that Keita is like an older dude. He's older. He's not old. But, they're more about like going after like younger talents, making him a Holland, making him a Bellingham, you name it. I mean, they like kind of like manufactured these guys, Pulisic, you name it, like taking these younger guys, getting a couple of years in them, improving them, showing them on the world stage, and then just charging a ridiculous amount in return. Other headlines. I was reading this earlier this morning about Van Dijk's press conference, obviously for the game, where I mean, the headline is going to be Van Dijk, Messi, and stuff like that, and obviously Van Dijk is going to come out and say, I mean, there are like other guys on the pitch as well, because I'm sure he knows overall Argentina has a better squad, better playing squad. I think Netherlands. I don't know if Netherlands can make that game difficult by kind of like what they did against the US, where they sit back and then try to counter. But at the same time, here's the thing, US had their chances still. It's not like, Netherlands defended so well where they didn't have any openings or anything like that. Would Argentina capitalize on those? Would they be able to leave a wing the way they did with Blind on the left-hand side, who was struggling against Dest the way it was? I know he got his goal afterwards and assist and everything, but, you can kind of look at that side and say, put some speed up there and we're going to cause a lot of problems. And Argentina has those players. So I think it's a matter of, it's just not like Van Dijk says, it's not just Van Dijk against Messi. It's going to be a lot more about how that defense, if they can keep that same shape and not give a lot of chances to Argentina, and then at the same time still be able to counter effectively. Because I'm assuming you do not want to really open the game up against Argentina if you're Netherlands anyway. So Allen's has shooting a headline, interested in Antonio Silva from Benfica next summer. I don't even know who Calcio Mercado is, to be honest. But yeah, like these rumors, it's the same thing. Like, ownership are going to be dime a dozen. I think when we get it a bit more from journalists that we trust or they have broken news in the past, then it becomes like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this. And I think that's what we're with Bellingham. That's why I'm getting damn excited. And then that's why I'm afraid to get excited, because I'm afraid of the disappointment. It's just kind of like a vicious cycle. But then you see another hot headline. It's like, ugh. Uh, Sterling is back. He's coming back to the World Cup. He's going to be with the squads. So he'll be. I do not see him playing with, obviously coming from that and stuff like that, not being with the team. I don't see him starting, but obviously he would become an option from the bench. Couple of obviously headlines on people moving, people coming in. Luis Enrique looks like going to be out of Spain. That seems a little harsh when you see Flick on the other side in Germany staying. I know this is the second time again for Spain, but they did go out on penalty kicks, and some brutally taken penalty kicks. And I feel like that's something where it's out of the coach's hands, right? I mean, there is no, and you can prepare, you can shoot 1,000 PKs, like I said. I mean, that's not going to make it at that moment with a relatively younger team. And all that pressure, there's no way to prepare for that. There's no way to practice for that. And obviously it showed. Some teams just did not perform well at all. I mean, we're talking about, I was covering this, I think it was yesterday with Rami, we were talking about it, like 75% is kind of like the average for penalty kicks converted. And when you don't convert any, you're definitely not helping the cause overall. Eric Ten Hag, we were sleeping, not happy with Manchester United's on. So that's another thing I was wondering, like, when we do this tournament, do we really care about the results? I mean, obviously Ten Hag is going to say, hey, like we were sleeping, not happy because you don't want to lose any game. But you have guys away. It's not really your team. And there's probably, I did not watch the game. I did not follow the game, to be honest with you. I know Fenerbahce was, for example, playing a preseason. And it was fun to watch because then, especially the last 20 minutes, there was a lot of like the younger kids, future generations you get to see. And you were like, hey, that kid could be something kind of deal. But I don't know if you can take the game seriously. Like Fenerbahce was up 4-0, and then once they started putting the kids in, it became 4-2. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters probably to the coach in terms of the discipline and the play on the field, and your basics being executed properly. So I'm sure Ten Hag, for example, cares. But in the overall grand scheme of things, I don't know if it's fair to judge one way or the other. That's why when we watch the games where our boys play against these teams in the Dubai Cup, it's more about seeing the guys back and playing games. I mean, if Diaz is back playing a game, getting some minutes, that's what I'm going to be excited to see. Not even like how he plays, to be honest. I'm just going to be excited to see him back out there playing, knowing he's going to be back and back in time. Otherwise, the results, it's like really meh I mean, I don't think we're going to be talking back about the Dubai Cup a few years after this saying, oh, we won. But talking about managers, I think the rumor, which I know it was not taken very well, and I kind of expected it, and I'm sure Gally is not going to take it well as well, where the rumors were that Berhalter might be coming back, signing an extension and stuff. And the same article also said he's exploring European options. And I'm really wondering, like, what team in Europe is saying, yeah, this is the guy. We should get this guy. Look how he's making a mess of those young talents. Look how defensive he plays. This is the kind of guy we want. I mean, I'm sure he's going to throw stuff around like that, but I wonder if there's in one team out there that says, let's bring it over. I know somebody had mentioned like the Wrexham factor or something like that, but this is not the Wrexham factor, where we're not going to follow, because the dude's not a celebrity. So people are not going to follow the team because of this and stuff like that. Nobody's following Berhalter anywhere. He can take his excessive G's and go anywhere else for most US fans. But at the same time, and I said this on the podcast as well on Monday, the bar is low, kind of like what Gally was talking about. So really the goal was, let's advance to the next round and get out of the group stages. And, let's face it, I did not expect US to come out of the group stages. And a lot of like US fans did not as well. A lot of the predictions, you can kind of see that, heck, most people had the Wales, who were like the worst in the group. Not a lot of people picked Iran either. But either way, the bar was low where they were not expected to go to the next round. And they did. So if you don't look at everything else and you're just looking at the results and you're just looking at papers and making a decision that way, I think it's then it makes sense to say, yeah, we should keep this guy because in 3.5 years, God knows where he'll take us. And yeah, God knows where he'll take the US team. But I think it's a matter of, looking at that and expectation low. I don't think the Federation is saying, not to mention he has all kinds of, connections and stuff. There was a thread that actually Megan shared in the Discord channel yesterday, talking about, how he ended up being the man anyway. So, seeing that story and now adding a hint of success to it, obviously he came after not qualifying. So, qualifying for the World Cup, advancing in the first round, and really putting up a pretty good fight against Netherlands. At least, like Netherlands created a situation where it will look like that anyway, where they will look like the dominant, the better team. If you don't understand that, that's what Netherlands is trying to do in the first place, kind of deal. But still, I think to the most US fans, they're like, hey, we didn't even think we were going to get out of the group. So the guy is doing good. And then you keep moving on. I think the people who are more invested in the sport, who follow these players, see how they play for their club teams, know the potential, is where his record does not look as good, because how good things can be. And that's where it gets tricky. But then I really feel, especially in this country, having talk to people, seeing your Facebook feed. I mean, my feed is like not a lot of Liverpool, obviously, but then you get these like random people that are like high school, whatever, that normally never ever say anything about soccer, and suddenly now invested because of the World Cup. And based on like you see from there and the comments underneath it, I would say the majority sees this as what I first said. Like they were not even expected to qualify. I mean, the guy qualifies them for the World Cup, gets them to the second round, puts up a good fight against Netherlands. Why not keep him? And I think that since that's the majority, it's very easy for the Federation to kind of like pass that along. Otherwise, there are a lot of good candidates out there, but there were a lot of good candidates out there last time as well. They just did not go that route. I think they want and with someone who will go with the plan. I mean, there was a lot of talk in that article about how the decisions for players being picked is influenced, where like especially like picking from Major League Soccer and specific markets and stuff like that, as opposed to other players. And that's pretty bad. It's almost like when they pick Pro Bowl or the All-Star team, where they try to get a guy from every. I don't know if they do that because I haven't like followed that in ages, but like get a guy from every team. They're like, well, at least he can pitch over there, let's get him, kind of deal, even from like a shit team. So I think it's that kind of a deal. I would not be surprised, and I called it this earlier, that he would sign an extension. And here's the thing: by the time, let's say, they start playing games again, and like various poor results come through or whatever, it's going to be too late in the game, because now we're 3.5 years away. Since we're doing this in winter, it's not even 4 years. It's 3.5 years away from this other World Cup, and which is in the US. So obviously it's a huge ordeal, but it's going to be, by the time the results are poor enough where even the question comes up about removing him, there's going to be like, oh, there's not a lot of time left. Oh, we're only like a year and a half away from the World Cup, kind of a deal. And I think he'll stick around and he'll be at the World Cup, to the dismay of a lot of like people on the Discord channel. And I think anybody who really follows soccer and knows these players and knows what can happen. But yeah, Turkish national team has other issues, so I'm not that concerned about the U.S. national team issues. We got our own problems back home. Ronaldo rumor, obviously, it's not a headline morning if you don't look at a Ronaldo headline. The rumors that he said, I'm out of here, then was squashed, but does that really mean he didn't say that when he doesn't play? I mean, I think we talked about this with Rami yesterday, after seeing how the team plays without him and being able to play in that system the way clearly they want to play, and really where everybody is a lot more suited for. And it almost felt like there was a lot more energy and effort put into that style of play because Ronaldo's not playing, because that's how they want to play and that's how they know it's going to be successful anyway. So I kind of like the fact that like this should be his role. I'm thinking, like he was talked to and say, hey man, this is going to be your role moving forward, and that's probably how it's going to be. Next round is Morocco. That's a big opportunity for Portugal, obviously, because they would have normally probably like matched up with Spain on paper, and I think Spain would be a lot bigger threat to them, obviously. But then this Morocco team can be surprising. I betted against them more than once at this point. But at the same time, I think every team responds to this differently. I think we talked about it a bit with like Rami yesterday too. Some teams, when they have the success, it kind of builds more momentum. They're like, you never know, let's keep going at it. But at the same time, sometimes the extra joy of getting to this level can let people like rest a little bit, where they're like, man, woo, look at where we're at. And when you do that, especially against a team like Portugal, yeah, that's where we'll be ending at the same time. Um, Chelsea owner, good old Todd. Todd's the Premier League's Pro Bowl guy. Comes to Macedon, Stamford Bridge. Blues abandoned plans away from their historic home to a 60,000 seater in Earl's Court. I read about that, and honestly, and that's the thing, they're doing the same thing. I know, like, people are. That's the thing. If you're not happy about your ownership, when the ownership invests in the club, that like FSG did in the stadium and what they've done in the club as well for like the practice grounds and all that kind of stuff, it's always taken as, especially when they're like, then the rumors come out that they're looking to sell. They're like, see, I told you guys all along. They're just doing it to improve the value. I mean, then you can't win. I mean, obviously, you're going to do stuff to improve the value of the club. And I think that's the thing. I mean, the Chelsea project taking over all that debt and stuff like that was a total different story than, when United is up for sale now, supposedly, and like Liverpool looking for investors. Well, both sides looking for investors, not like for sale. But I think, that's the thing. That's what increases value. But at the same time, that's what's good for the club. In a team like Liverpool, that's what's good for the city. That's reinvestments in the club, in the stadium, in the grounds, in the city itself. So you got to kind of take that as a good thing overall, and not just like look at it with like a shady, oh, they're just doing it so they can sell it for higher thing. Because I mean, obviously, yeah, it's going to increase the price because it's a good thing. That's the only reason it's increasing the price. So we'll be back tomorrow morning. Gonna call it a morning. Not a lot of headlines, really, to be honest with you. And I just don't want to jinx the whole Bellingham thing. So I'd rather just talk about the headlines of how Bellingham signed, what he was wearing, blah, 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 rather than just keep going with the speculations. But I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. I just hope this does not linger all freaking winter and spring. I just hope we are able to close the deal in January. You would think at this point, Bellingham would want this done and over with as well, because I'm sure, I mean, especially in this World Cup, maybe the scrutiny will not be as much when he goes back to Dortmund, just because, the English media is there, and obviously, like, the international media is more concerned about that than his, what he's doing in Dortmund and what he plays and stuff like that. So he won't get as many of these questions, I think, once he goes back home. So the scrutiny might be less, but you would think in the minds of Bellingham, he would rather get it done and over with too, so he can focus on what he has to do for Dortmund the rest of the year. But let's just get this done and over with so we can all rest and sleep in peace. Because, I mean, I think really, really a huge step for the club overall. I see a lot of names rumored, but man, this is the kind of player, because of his age, because of the potential, and not only that, I think because of the head on the shoulders on top of it, like, this is not an Mbappe style player, like, loads of talents, but a little too full of himself. The kid looks very like centered, very mature, like already ready to be a captain kind of player. And that's, golden. And there's no price for that. That's why we should end up paying whatever the price is and make sure we seal the deal. But more to come on that, I am sure. More to come on us tomorrow morning. I'll be back with, I'm assuming, Kenrick from the Jamaica group again. So we'll look at the headlines, and obviously the games will be back. So we'll start previewing the next round in the World Cup. But have an awesome Thursday, everybody. And we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, same time. Take care.